Hey, how's it going, guys? This is going to be the first in a video series where I talk about two things that I find particularly interesting. One thing, which I just recently started getting into, which is lockpicking, or Locksport. Of course, some of my influences have been Lockpicking Lawyer, he's definitely increased in popularity in the past couple of years, and another really interesting character, his name is Bosnian Bill. If you're ever into lockpicking or just want to find out what Locksport is all about, definitely check out their YouTube channels. There are many more great lockpickers out there that I can definitely recommend, but I'll leave that up to you to do your research and figure out who you really enjoy watching and what type of tips and tricks. And really, if you want to start to get into it yourself, find the YouTube channel that really suits you. But I just recently started getting into lockpicking, and so I kind of consider myself a bit of an amateur since I really just started at the beginning of this year. I had a friend who mentioned that I should combine this interest with one of my other interests, which I would say that I know a decent amount about, and that would be craft beer. So, today, we're going to start off with a beer here called Acheron. This is from Martin House Brewing Company. And one of the things that I want to do is just sort of pour a beer, give it a little bit of a review, sort of describe the character of the beer, and why not? We'll pair it along with a lock that I have in my collection or something that I'll eventually get from some other place at some other time. So in that way, really, I guess just sort of combine two of my interests, and hopefully you guys really get something out of it. So, this beer that we have right here, this is called Acheron by Martin House Brewing Company. Martin House is out of Fort Worth, Texas. They've been killing it in the craft beer scene as of late, and they've been really pushing what craft beer can be. Not only do they make a variety of standard really great beers. This one, for example, this is a whiskey barrel-aged Imperial Stout. But they also push the boundaries as to what beer can really be. So they'll make ridiculous-sounding things, such as pairing with best-made pickles to make a pickle beer, which is it was a pickle juice sour of some sort that really made a splash in the craft beer community here in Texas. A lot of the other things that they make, of course, they make really amazing IPAs, Imperial Stouts, sours, you name it, they probably make it. And in fact, they're going to push the boundaries to see what they can make and what will sell in the community. This one here, Acheron, is one of my absolute favorite Imperial Stouts. So it's a 12.2% ABV, 50 IBU Imperial Stout, aged in whiskey barrels. As you can see, it was brewed with a variety of 6 specialty malts and brown sugar, aged in 6 months in fresh whiskey barrels. Again, it was brewed on August 23rd of 2018, and this is the 2019 release of it. Typically, they'll release this one mid to late into the year. Once it's had, I don't remember exactly when it was released, but this one was released in 2019, and this is the second year that they released Acheron. 2018, 2019, those are the first couple of years, and I'm really excited to see whenever it does come out this year. But this is definitely among one of my favorite Imperial Stouts out of Martin House, one of my favorite beers of all time, and plus, you can't complain about the artwork. They do a wonderful job of actually designing their cans. Of course, this is not printed onto the can, it's wrapped in some sort of a shrink wrap. One of the interesting things that Martin House does is they actually sell these in boxes. So this is 2 cans, 2 12-ounce cans. And of course, again, the artwork is just absolutely amazing, beautifully done all the way around. And if you open this up, like I mentioned, it's 2 12-ounce cans, so you actually get 24 ounces of beer rather than the regular 22 that you would get if you bought a bomber. So, let's go and open this up, pour it up, and let's get a good taste of it. So you see this beer pours out beautifully. You have a pretty good head, considering that it is a pretty intense alcoholic beer at about 12.2% that I said. Yeah, 12.2%, that is an absolutely beautiful head. And as that head starts to dissipate, you definitely get this really heavy aroma of whiskey on there. On the tongue, you get almost a sort of Coca-Cola type flavor, but you definitely get notes of the whiskey that the barrels were, or in the barrels that this beer was aged in. A little bit of woodiness, but you also get some bitter dark chocolate, some really, really nice chocolate notes, a little bit of coffee too. Nothing too prevalent and too over the top. This has had a little bit of time to age and to mellow down, so a lot of those crazy notes have really had time to mellow out, to meld together, and this beer would definitely taste amazing given a couple more years. So this is one of those that you can definitely sit on, you can age in your cellar, in your beer cellar, in your fridge, or I typically just sort of leave it in boxes outside of my room. Typically anywhere that you don't really get huge temperature fluctuations is a good place. Preferably a little bit cooler, but you know, you do what you do. So I'm just going to set that aside. And we're going to take a look at the other thing that I have prepared for you. We're going to start picking some locks. Now, this lock that I have here, in fact, this is a set of 3 locks. I'm going to center this here. This is a cheapo little 3-lock set that I got at Harbor Freight. One of the interesting things about this one, of course, I think this 3-pack came at about $16, something like that. And as you can see, there's not really too much to this lock. It's a 40 millimeter lock made in China. And one of the interesting things about this one is that apparently this lock core is actually made of plastic. So that definitely throws a wrench in the cogs in that after numerous pickings, this one actually starts to wear down. So you start to lose quite a bit of feel in it, and that may very well even make it that much more secure than a lot of other better quality locks out there once you start to learn how to pick these. But let's go ahead and get this open. I'm going to start out with a pry bar in 50 thousandths, and I'm going to pick this one with the Peterson Gem in 25 thousandths. Excuse me, in 25 thousandths. So I'm going to be using top of the keyway tension. And I just like to start from the back, really. I'm going to use light tension just because it is a plastic cylinder. These pins will tend to wear away at that quite a bit. So I'm going to start with relatively light tension, and hopefully this lock doesn't make a fool of us. So 4 is loose. Move up the stack, 3, 2, and I don't really feel anything, so I'm going to increase my tension a bit. Got to click out of 4. 3 is binding a bit. I don't think it wants to go yet. Moving up the stack. 2 and 1. A little click out of 1. Back to 4. 3, 2. Little big click out of 2. And 1. 1 feels set. Back to 4. And let's see how long it takes me to actually get this open. As I said, this is a plastic core, so a lot of these feel sort of gummy. And a lot of the times I actually have to shove these pins up. Nice click out of 1. Come on. Of course, this lock's going to make a fool of me and make me seem so incompetent. That's just what happens when you start to degrade over time after many pickings. I guess you really get your money's worth with these locks, right? Okay, let's go ahead and recock and start over again. So I'm going to stick my pick in, apply a little bit of tension, start feeling my way from the back up. So So there's a click out of 4, click out of 3, click out of 2, back to 1, got to click out of 1, a little bit of movement in the core, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm just going to try and shove these up as best I can. Of course, the tolerances with this one are not as good with better made locks. See if I can't force something. And there we go. We have an open. So that did take me quite a bit, just because, again, tolerances on this one are not as good as with better security locks, better made all metallic body locks. Just to show you again, go ahead and close this back up. Here are the keys that came along with it. This is, as you can see, this is a 4-pin lock. 1, 2, 3, 4. And shove that in there. Of course, that does lock. Now, of course, this lock does not open up, so I unfortunately wouldn't be able to show the inside of it, but I'm sure you can probably find something on the internet that shows you the inner workings of these locks. So, that's all I got for you today. So again, as a recap, that Acheron, one of my favorite beers out of Martin House, really great bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout, can definitely stand quite a few years of aging. Coupled with this cheapo little Harbor Freight lock that over time could give you some pretty darn good security, just because that cylinder doesn't really work very well. The only thing you have to worry about with this one is somebody going in and possibly melting that cylinder out. So that's all I got for you. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm going to go finish this beer. See you guys later.